Right, so it is day 66 of my New Year's tree planting resolution thing, and it is not yet dark, but it will be soon, so let's get on with it. Right, so today's planting is not a cactus, and I will forgive you if you think that it is, because I, for about 10 years of my life, unquestioningly accepted when I was told that it was a fig, which it also very much is not. This is Euphorbia, and I think it's Euphorbia ingens, which is one of the columnar sort of tree euphorbias with a very cactus-like growth. We will be seeing some other less cactus-like tree euphorbias later in the year. This is, unless I've got it mixed up with one of the Arabian ones, which is sometimes planted in gardens, but I don't think in Zambia. This is a native species. Usually in Zambia I see it growing in woodlands and into dry forests, although there is a very similar one that I get mixed up with it, and I'm not sure which one of those it is that I've seen growing on the headland of an island in a very, very busy river up in Luapula province. But they are actually much more tolerant of drainage than some of the other euphorbias. So provided their roots aren't sitting anaerobically, they cope quite well with getting wet. Particularly at this time of year, you still want to be very cautious planting them out, because if they get inundated and their roots are injured, they can be very prone to rotting. This is true of a lot of the succulents, generally speaking. The aloes I've been planting out are some of the aloes that are generally exceptions to that, but even things like aloe arborescens, if it gets really wet and it's only just been cut and it's still a wet wound, it can be prone to rot, but because that species roots wherever it topples over, I'm not too concerned about that. But anyway, so that is actually what is going in as a companion plant around our Euphorbia ingens. Now here the soil looks compacted, but actually it's more that it is gravelly. So there seems to have been at some point a rubble pile or something in this area that I wasn't aware of, but it has made the soil quite lumpy, as it were, which should improve the drainage, should keep a certain amount of airspace in there, so that these things should get the drainage they need. And as it hasn't rained properly for several days now, I think this should be an ideal time to get this in, so any wounds it gets in the transplanting should heal up. There should be minor ones on the roots, mostly to do with illustrating to me why sacks aren't good for growing plants in. But as well as the aloe arborescens, of which I'm putting 3 around it just to shelter the base as it settles in, because if I'm wrong about which native species it is, then it wants a lot more shade than this and certainly wants its roots to stay cool. And I'm also putting in 3 Cotyledon barbae, which is the bushveld Cotyledon, which should keep it nice and sheltered again around the base. That should fill out, form nice little bushes, which should attract the sunbirds nicely, but also, yeah, again, slow the movement of air, slow the impact of water, so it's not getting too directly soaked by rain. It'll scatter it about a bit more, and just generally keep it a little bit sheltered from the elements. I'm also going to be putting in 3 other trees, so these are all Yucca giganteas, which are the ones that I called Yucca guatemalensis, which is a synonym now. I believe the growth form corresponds to the types that were called guatemalensis. It tends to get very leggy and sprawling. This is another tree that is, in gardens where I've seen it growing, it seems to thrive very well in sort of what would equate to a deciduous forest setting. So it doesn't want to be in too dense a shade, but it's quite happy in quite a lot of shade. It grows into this very wonderful, leggy, sprawling tree. And again, if it does reach the ground again and it's sprawling, it should be quite easy to root it, and then you could end up with a sort of air-layered, I guess, sort of wonder boom effect with this sort of multi-stemmed tree. Reaching down to the ground over and over and over again. But that should be quite a nice one to plant with this, because it will give it a light shelter, but because of the sort of chaotic arrangement of yucca heads, it shouldn't give too dense a shade. I believe the Euphorbia will eventually grow taller than the yucca, but this yucca can get very massive, although I don't know if it will get that high in this climate. It does, again, tend to sprawl more. I'm not putting dragon fruit in with these ones because they're still a little bit smaller. But once they're a little bit bigger, I will be attaching some sort of vine, whether it's a dragon fruit or one of the other edible vines, I am not yet sure. But around them, to stop mole rats chewing the bases, I am putting in some Euphorbia tithymaloides, which is the devil's backbone or Jacob's ladder. I did yesterday, while I was preparing for yesterday's planting, I found the last yucca that I had been aware was damaged by mole rats, and actually, where I had discarded the chewed portion, there is now a new yucca, so I'm less concerned. So they're not going in as close as they could, but also that gravel in the soil should limit the movement of mole rats in this area, and actually just the sort of heaviness of the soil does indicate there's not been as much tunneling activity and behaviour like that through here, so I don't think they're at too much risk from that. They're also each getting an Allocamerone just as an extra bit of ground cover and to attract in some of the sunbirds and so forth. So yeah, so that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. Tune in again tomorrow and we will see what I get up to then.